It's as simple as this: of invest time in your people and the people you're selecting. Get to know them, right? Get to know what makes them tick, what's important to them. When you find something that fits your strengths naturally, make sure you're prepared. Work your butt off, make it fun, and you'll never feel an ounce of regret for the time it takes to do that.
This is Ryan Candela,
the global head of talent acquisition at Tenneco, who are the largest private equity-owned automotive business globally.
We're here in Detroit, Michigan, the home of the automotive industry, to hear his story. Welcome to In the Passenger Seat, Ryan. Our first passenger seat across the pond in sunny Detroit, Michigan. Let's start the episode off with a day in the life of yourself, right? A global senior acquisition director of now a 60,000 person automotive business. What does a day in the life look like for you?
Well, first, welcome. Happy to have you boys on this side of the pond. I'll say it never really shuts off, right? Of being a global company, something's always going between Asia Pacific, mainly China. We're very, very populated there. India, Europe. It's more or less a constant continuation. I typically start my day, India, China, get meetings out of the way, check statuses, and then roll into Europe. And then, home base here being in the US kind of becomes the last place you check on. Just being a global company with so much going on, there's excitement all over the world. We're always doing something. So it really never stops. It just one day rolls into the next.
What time does that day start then?
It depends on how well my kids sleep the night before, which the beauty of, hey, if we have a 3 a.m. wake up and I can't go back to bed, I'll log in and there'll be something for me to do, somewhere across the world.
You just don't sleep?
No, I'm a low sleep needs person. Let's put it that way. Perfect day, I'm up at 6, have breakfast with the missus and then roll right into the day.
And you were talking there just before we started filming that you do come into the office more often than not, don't you?
Yeah, well, and we're a big culture company. Everyone says it right now. It's kind of the buzzword, but there's differences between having posters on the wall and really living it every single day. We're very much the latter. So even myself, I've got quite a commute in. It takes me a little over an hour, but I'm usually, meeting with teams globally. That time's put to good use, but just being around everybody, it can't be replaced.
So let's take it back then. Let's take it back a step, because you have now been at Tenneco for 5 years. Prior to that, you were more on the agency side, but you've obviously come from a degree in university that doesn't necessarily translate to that. How did you end up at Tenneco?
Yeah, I did. I started my recruiting career in agency, but to what you're touching on, I have a science degree. I was going to be a doctor, to the point of I sat my entrance exams. It was always my goal to be a pediatrician. I always connected with children and the fights they have. There's some incredible battles with just horrible diseases, and I was drawn to it. And as I was getting ready to begin medical school, I'd done thousands of hours shadowing doctors, volunteering, a lot of it here in Detroit. I probably spent 2,000 hours volunteering with, the youth in the inner city, any sort of medical services through all the great hospitals here. But really, since I was a kid, I've had family friends that owned an agency firm. And as I was kind of weighing my life, which direction, they begged me to try agency recruiting, and I'd never heard of it. I couldn't have told you what recruiting was or what talent acquisition was, but while I was waiting to get into medical school, I gave it a shot, and it's just one of those things I fell in love with, and you guys see this in what you do. There's not many straight lines into talent acquisition or recruiting. Everyone's got a story of kind of how the bug bit them.
Very true. And that is quite common, that people do tend to fall into it one way or another. But I think if you're a people person, then it kind of comes a bit natural in how that step happens. So that was back 9-10 years ago. So you went into agency recruitment first. So did you work for your family friend's business, or they just got you into the industry itself?
I did. I actually So my wife also has a medical and science background. She had an amazing opportunity. We were going to move across the country. I was going to move to North Carolina. She was going to go to one of the prestigious universities down there for a job, and they begged me to stay. I tried recruiting. She found a great job here, and it's one of those things. After about a week of understanding, I say understanding a little tongue in cheek, right? I don't know if this is a business you ever understand. It's always evolving, but I saw that very quickly, and this was the path. Let's just put it that way. I was very lucky. I had some success early on, and in the agency side, you get one of those first commission checks as a young man, and you realize what's possible in this industry, and it fulfilled all those needs. I think you said it well, Jamie, of tying it back to helping people, if you like working with people, and it fulfilled that need of, obviously, with the medical side and wanting to work with kids in particular. It's a big sense of my fulfillment comes from helping people, and I got a very strong sense of fulfillment through this job too.
So has the medical bug now gone? Did that go immediately?
It's always there. I've got friends from that era of my life that still make fun of me and call me the doctor that could have been, and Dr. Ryan. It's scary, isn't it?
What going back before that then, going back before university, what kind of sparked your interest into going down that route of wanting to help people, wanting to go down the route of being a doctor, that kind of thing? Because it's a big commitment going to university to study to become a doctor.
Yeah, and I think some of it's just how I was naturally wired, right? Of everyone's got some predispositions for things that they gravitate towards, and I always had a passion for people, caring for people, solving problems is a big part of that. But maybe I'm a little bit of the outlier. I really like school, right? I liked learning. I like some of the old school topics too, social studies, economics, obviously the sciences, right? But I really enjoyed kind of the entire picture where people think about the commitment of school, all the extra work, the challenge of the program. I was really captivated by it of, the organic chemistry, some of the more complex classes. I had the most fun taking those classes, right? So it's kind of that blend of continuous learning and curiosity, but it serves you well in talent acquisition too, right? It made it easier to cross over than I would have ever imagined.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of transferable skills. And I guess the route of wanting to help people literally transfers across to recruitment. And if you have that kind of embedded in you.
Oh, absolutely. If you think of basic psychological needs of people, right? They want security and safety. Obviously, medicine is more on the safety side, but what we do is a lot on security of, matching people with jobs. This is how they support themselves, their families, provide the goals and visions. It's just different sides. And by no means, I don't want to draw a exact parallel. There's a lot of amazing doctors that are doing things we couldn't dream of. I don't want to put what we're doing today as an exact parallel, but there's a lot of continuity.
Has there been a time, because obviously now you've worked your way to a fantastic position in a great company, has there ever been a time now along the way where you've thought of diverting out of talent acquisition and still kind of staying in that remit of supporting others, helping others?
Absolutely. And a lot of it is fulfillment that I get from my role today, where at Tenneco, we really are not a siloed company, right? We're very collaborative. Culture runs deep in how we work. And a lot of that means you don't have to stay in your lane, right? To the best of intentions of the things I'm exposed to, from high level strategy to operations to finance to HR, of I get to see so much, and part of my job is communicating that, right? So I feel incredibly lucky. The curiosity in my mind is constantly fulfilled because I get to go in, learn the why, the how, the what of all of our different functions so that I can sell that coherently and explain that to the market. And there's a lot of fulfillment in how we work here.
Do you like the importance, because you're obviously a key stakeholder, right? Alongside all these other guys of strategies, etc.
I
Do
don't
you
know
like
about that. Uh, I'll say this: of titles don't mean a whole lot here. It's all about solving problems together, right? And there is an aspect to that. I'm very fortunate. Our executive team here, I get to work very closely with on a regular cadence of, there's a lot of things in my world that at times only a handful of people in the company know what we're doing or where we're going. And I'm incredibly fortunate that I'm part of that dialogue here. We have a real unified strategy. We know where we're going. We're also eyes wide open to the changes in this industry. But it comes back to being very coherent as a leadership team, and being a part of that is, a blessing I can't say thank you enough for.
So you lived in Detroit your whole life, big sports fan as well.
Absolutely. Die-hard Detroit sports fan. You can throw the University of Michigan in there. Just talk about a childhood of from without dating myself too much if there's any hockey fans, but from the time I was born and until my mid-20s, the Detroit Red Wings had never missed the playoffs, right? One of the best dynasties in sports.
Could you play yourself?
I played a little bit. Hockey was my game, and even through that, it's given so much back to me. I try to do the same. Hockey's a very tight-knit community, and actually the owners who convinced me to get into recruiting are guys that I know through the hockey community. I've been incredibly fortunate. I've had friends that have played for the Detroit Red Wings. I've been able to stay on the ice to keep myself in questionably good shape. We won't say how well it's working, but just to have that as an outlet, right? I think everyone needs that outlet as something where they can clear their mind, and for me, that's sports.
You do see a lot of common themes run through people who enjoy sports and play sports and are competitive do tend to do well in the area of acquisition and recruitment and anything in that world. And I think there's definitely a correlation between that.
There's a couple things, just foundational life skills, and sports aren't the only place to get this, but a lot of people do find it through all the sports, globally around the world, right? I've got great friends now that have introduced me to cricket, and obviously, your version of football is a little bit different than our version, but even across Europe, right? Field hockey, there's so many different sports globally. But it teaches you foundational leadership skills, right? How to relate to a group, how to have a common goal, bridge differences, and, have a competitive spirit, which, some people take it too far, and being competitive doesn't mean you're no fun to be around, right? But there's a way to relate to the group to achieve a mission, right? And a lot of people get that through sports.
What do you look for, Ryan, when you're hiring for your team?
That's a great question. And there's one thing that stands above the rest, and that's emotional intelligence, right? If people are able to, I guess, feel, understand, put themselves in others' shoes, I think empathy is a big part of this. If you can meet people where they're at, right, and read the subtle signs, there's a much deeper science to this of, body language, understanding your biases and how of our own minds work. If you have that ability, that's paramount to being successful with what we do, dealing with people, right? We're a manufacturing company, and, for the most part, we're producing parts and components. But in our world and talent acquisition, people are our commodity, and I don't take that responsibility lightly. I need people who can relate to anyone, understand cultures, and really have a people-first mentality.
When you talk about emotional intelligence, how much of that do you think can be taught and learned versus how much you're kind of just you grow up with?
I believe anyone can be taught to increase their emotional intelligence, but there's a caveat, is the person has to want to. This is one of those great philosophical questions of, can you teach someone to do X? And in our field, the answer is yes. You can increase awareness, you can give them the tools, but they have to want it, right? Emotional intelligence is something that has to start with the individual. And there are people who naturally are predispositioned, they have a gift for it of relating to others, and it's just easier for them, but that doesn't mean they're the only ones who can do it or perfect that skill. Anyone can improve their emotional intelligence.
And you've got it kind of two parts, right? Where you're leading a team of how big is the team at the moment?
I've got a team of 24 people all over the world right now.
Okay. How do you find that managing people who, like you say, are in Europe or in South America or in Asia? How do you find that?
I absolutely love it because I love learning things along the way, right? It's as simple as this of invest time in your people and the people you're selecting, get to know them, right? Of get to know what makes them tick, what's important to them. And if you can meet them where you're at and then merge that with goals of the team, goals of the company, that's where magic happens. And it's an overly simplistic theory, but I think sometimes focusing on the fundamentals is where it's at, right? And there's a lot of modern ways to do it, but if you can get to know people, connect with them, find what gives them fulfillment, and then make that part of, the work, it doesn't get better than that.
What kind of a leader are you?
I'm I'm a high empathy, but I have goals, I have objectives. I give my team a lot of freedom, right? I think that comes with trust of selecting the right people. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a pure delegator, but I've got phenomenal regional leaders and teams of I believe in every one of the people on my team. I could go to them with so many things, and it helps their growth too. And I've got a team with curious minds, which makes this very easy. Of hey, I want to expand everyone. I want to grow them. I want to offer any support I can, but I'm never gonna to think I have all the answers. I'm continuously learning from them as well.
Out of interest, do you find it harder or easier to hire for your team or to hire for external parts of the business in manufacturing, engineering, sales, HR?
That is a phenomenal question, right? It's the old adage of, hey, is it easier to do for everyone else than when it's time to do for yourself? But I find so much joy in being able to go out and hire for my team, which I'm very lucky of. I found one of those jobs that I'm very passionate about, and I take as much, I guess, personal involvement in hiring a finance leader or supply chain leader as I do in my own team. And it doesn't feel hard. It doesn't feel like it's intense work. It feels like the challenge of finding the right fit for the team and the goals at hand. That's where the fulfillment comes from. So I enjoy it across the board.
Do you have that instant idea of, yeah, I like this person?
Yeah. So one of the things and the beauty of, being at a company this long and being part of the transitions and part of the strategy, you get a feel for, the leaders and the vision and what will work. And it's to the point of I do make sure everything is with an open mind, right? Assumptions are killers in hiring. You can't make any assumptions. You have to take each person where they're at as who they are. No two people are alike. That's incredibly true. So I always make sure it's a blank slate, but there's times where, 2 minutes into an interview, I can tell this person is going to be a great fit for us and what we're about, or vice versa. And it doesn't make someone a better person or a worse person. It's just, what we're looking for at that time. And it's muscle memory, right? It's 10,000 hours to become a master. You can start to tell pretty quickly.
Do you cut that interview short? If within the first 5 minutes you've realized maybe not this candidate, is it?
No, no, I won't do it. I won't do it. In my mind, if I've committed, an allotment of time.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important to have an open mind is there's people where the first impression, they're nervous, right? They're not sure. They have something going on that the first couple minutes of an interview aren't great. And by the end, they're a fantastic person. So you take the totality of that slot. I like to say everything's a data point, right? From how they come into a meeting, how they leave a meeting, how they treat staff if you're out at an event. Everything's a data point, and you have to give people the benefit of that entire time commitment to get the full picture.
I think we can definitely agree on that as well. I think it's also the impression that you give them. I think, someone has allocated their time and like you said, they're going for a first interview, especially more junior people and younger people, like you said, if they're a bit nervous. Sometimes you want to make sure that you don't burn any bridges as well.
Because you're quite relaxed, aren't you, in an interview?
I'm too relaxed.
And you can tell from this of that's part of how we operate of we want to be genuine, right? Of it goes back to the security that people are looking for in a job is for most people, it's the largest part of their security. So I want to get to know them. I want to be relaxed and in a spot where I can break down a barrier or two, maybe get rid of some of the nerves they could have of, we're a large corporation, right? We're global. We're very profitable. We're one of the movers and shakers of our industry. And sometimes that's intimidating, but what I want people to feel is, we're humans too, right? We have goals, we have things, we like doing things we're less comfortable doing. And you got to find a way to give them a chance to be themselves so you can try to find that fit.
Before we go into the Tenneco group and the business, etc., the values are very clear at the business. You walk straight into the organization, they're on the wall behind the reception. Do you try and find those in candidates when you're bringing them into the organization? Are you kind of pinpointing and see where you can maybe highlight that?
We have something that we call the Tenneco way, right? So it starts with our core values, which I mentioned earlier. A lot of companies, it's posters on the wall, you see signs. This is how we select people. It's the standard we hold ourselves to. It's the standard we hold our employees to. And it's paramount. It's the foundation of our candidate selection process. And it doesn't stop there. Of once they're in the company, our internal teams, the career development, the progression we want to give people centers around the Tenneco way. It's our guiding principle. It's the key to our success. It's our competitive advantage. And if you put people first and give them tools and really resources and communicate it well, you'll be amazed at what can happen.
Yeah. Well, people build the culture, don't they? It's all well and good having posters on the walls, like you say, but it's the people you bring into the organization that help shape it and move it forward.
It's part of our strategy, right? If you can find people that fit those core values at their core, give them the freedom to suggest things, to make changes, to take decisions, and it becomes crowdsourcing decisions, but we're all working through the same lens. It's a beautiful philosophy to watch unfold.
And we're literally in the heart of Detroit now. You're at, like you say, a global corporation, 60,000 people, automotive industry, in the hub of the automotive world. Is it a big natural attraction to people to come and work for an automotive supplier in Detroit?
I still think so. And the world's becoming more global and yet smaller every year, it feels like, with connectedness of, I feel as close to my global team as I do to the people in the office every day, right? Because of the tools at our disposal. But there's a big appetite in this market. Obviously, the Motor City, people think of automotive, they think of Detroit. We've got a Henry Ford Museum. Ford's headquarters is here. General Motors headquarters are here. A lot of the other tier one suppliers. So the population is very automotive centric. I remember seeing a stat that across Metro Detroit, 80% of people that live here have a direct connection to the automotive industry. So it's still very much that way. I think this city sometimes gets a bad rap of, it's a very evolved city now. There's a lot of technology here, a lot of different industries, but still automotive is king here.
And you're an automotive guy, right, Ryan? And your dad was as well. I looked at your questionnaire that you'd shared with us. One interesting area that me and Jamie found was you'd written internal combustion engine isn't going anywhere, or not anytime soon. What's your thoughts on that?
I think we're living through it right now, right? If we go back in a time capsule to 2018, 2019, 2020, let's say pre-COVID, you would have thought the EV adoption levels globally would be, king and disrupt everything. Well, it just hasn't happened on the timeline people expect. And it's not a knock on the technology. It's not a knock on the capabilities. It's amazing what we're able to do advancing things. But I think there's a much larger presence still in a place, even long-term, for, I guess I don't want to call it the old way of doing things, but internal combustion engines drive so much of our lives, and the transportation industry, obviously automotive industry, but it crosses so many places. I don't think it's going to fade away as quickly as people think.
I thought you was going to say there, Dan, that you read on the questionnaire that Ryan's dad was actually an automotive engineer and then a director of engineering and tried to steer you clear of the industry. Was that right? Is this you just being rebellious and going against him?
Well, that is true. And here's proof to the Metro Detroit connection. So my dad's father, first generation immigrant from Italy, engineer at Ford. My dad is one of 5 boys. All of his brothers are in the automotive industry in different functions, right? So we have a sales VP, we have an IT leader, we have accountant. Obviously, my dad on the engineering side. And it got to the point of, even growing up, my dad would take me to a manufacturing plant on the weekend, right? If I got good grades or if I behaved at home, I was giddy to go to a manufacturing site, see the robotics, see the machines. That was kind of my reward growing up. But the flip side, I think my dad saw the highs and lows of this industry is very predispositioned to peaks and valleys. There's very little, plateau time. But for me and the way I'm wired, that's what I want. I want to always be solving problems. But yeah, he tried to steer me away. He loved the medical route. Let's put it that way.
Imagine doing well at school and then being told your treat is going to a manufacturing plant.
Yeah, it's different in the UK, isn't it? In all seriousness, do you think that helps you? The fact your dad was a director of engineering, your uncle was a VP in sales, your other uncle was in IT, all in the same industry. It's funny because we were talking before about how in your position you get to see what's going on with strategy, what's going on in operations, what's going on in the commercial side of Tenneco, what's going on with R&D and new concepts. Do you think that helped? Or maybe not even helped, but kind of without even knowing, kind of led you to that?
I agree. Because I think naturally, and this comes down to just being very lucky, right? I'm very fortunate for the situations I've been in, the people around me. But yeah, I think I always had kind of a cross-functional look because of my family. I wanted to understand the different areas, right? I remember sitting at family parties and I'd ask my sales uncle, who was always traveling the world. He spent a lot of time in Asia, and even my dad spent a lot of time in Germany. I wanted to know how they viewed things, how they thought about things, what problems they were facing, what they were solving for. And I guess through that curiosity, made it kind of natural to do the same thing of, at Tenneco, we have a fantastic executive leadership team, right? And I get to be a partner with our CFO, our CIO, obviously our CEO, our CAO, but it's solving problems in their functions. And I think I'm maybe just naturally used to doing that, right? So there is some truth there, absolutely.
How important is it for you guys at Tenneco to be close to the OEMs? Because obviously, like you said, you got two of the biggest OEMs in the world are headquartered here. You got the history of the automotive industry is here.
Well, it seems fitting as we're at the base of the General Motors Renaissance Center right now. But it's important, right? You have to be where the customers are, but that's true globally, right? It's not a, one epicenter for the industry now. Of India and China are maybe the most happening markets right now. Obviously, our presence and Europe, and it's reflected in our philosophy, though, of we have leaders, in China and Asia as a whole that can take decisions because they're aligned to the plan. And, being close to their OEMs mean they have to make really quick decisions, right? So it goes back to being, a very global world, but a very connected world. And, there's nuances, right, of how you deal with different customers around the world. But the end goal is, meeting them where they're at and solving a problem.
Obviously talking a lot about the automotive hub and Motor City. Do you feel like there is a bit of a kind of cult of everyone from Michigan and Detroit against other cities in the US?
You definitely wear your Detroit sports fandom as a badge of honor. We like to think we're one of the more educated sports fan bases across all our four major sports, right? So you've got the Detroit Tigers, a historic franchise. You've got the Detroit Red Wings, historic franchise. You've got the Detroit Lions, not so historic in terms of success, but really the last 2 or 3 years might be the most popular NFL team in the world. You have the Detroit Pistons with a history of success. So we take a lot of pride in it, but I do also like to think we just enjoy the sports, right? We travel well, we support our teams on the road, but we welcome people when they come here as well.
What is it you guys do before an NFL game? What's it called?
The national anthem.
No, before No, I know what that one is.
Surely you know what that is.
Tail something. Tail. All the fans go somewhere for a game. Or have I got that wrong?
Oh, so tailgating.
Tailgating, that's it, yeah.
So very similar, right? Of starting the party before. We've been very lucky in this town, a lot of playoff teams, a lot of championship teams, and this city truly does become a party, right? As we're exploring, you get to see the proximity of the stadiums to each other. And Detroit has kind of become, when one of the teams good, the whole city becomes a party. And, you set up and you'll grill and you'll share drinks and meet new friends. And just hospitality of welcoming, anyone around who shares a fandom to share food and to talk is a big part of our sports culture, really in the US in general.
So Ryan, going back to the to talent acquisition, and we talk about a lot of areas that are going to be changing over the next, well, year, 2 years maybe, one of them being AI. What's your thoughts on this?
I think it's another very exciting time for evolution, right? Let's look at the automotive industry. Arguably, the last 10 years has produced as much innovation as the first 100. And that's not to take anything away from the evolution, but look at what we're doing with electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles. I think we're going through another technical renaissance too. And AI is obviously the hot button everyone wants to talk to first. There's a place for it, right? The tools, the capabilities, you can't ignore it. What it can do is foundationally so powerful, but it's in using it the right ways. I think companies that are going to use it correctly are the ones who don't lose their identity throughout the process, right? I've talked a lot about culture and how people-centric we are. Is if you can blend the capabilities while still remaining, genuine, because it comes back to people at the end of the day, right? We've got to find the right people to lead our teams, to lead our initiatives. AI is going to be a phenomenal tool. We're still going to need those people, and we want to be around genuine people, right? We want them to feel the authentic nature of what it means to be at Tenneco, right? So it's going to be balancing the two of those.
Can AI ever measure emotional intelligence on somebody?
This is a topic I am very deep in personally. So I'm experimenting with a tool. I'm teaching it things. I'm seeing what it can retain, seeing if there's maybe a predictive value so it can help us along the process, right? Because anything people related, the higher predictability we can find, the more confidence we have in our decisions. But, there's so many emotional components that comprise a human being and their thought process and why they are who they are. It can certainly complement, it can augment. I promise we'll see people say that it can replace it. I'll be the first one to support it if it works, but I still think you have to have people at the heart of this process.
Would it ever worry you what AI could turn into?
I think there's a lot of possibilities on the extreme sides, right? And it's one of those, you look at the media on any topic, right? We tend to focus on the extremes where there's a lot of value in it. There's a lot of good. If we could focus on what we take away, and maybe it's in framing, right? Of framing it as a supplemental tool. There are parts of the world, though, I don't want to be naive to it either, that, AI could probably take over some aspects, but I'm yet to see an AI model that can drive culture the same way people can.
It is developing quickly, though, isn't it?
It's so fast. You started to hear about it, 4 or 5 years ago, and then 2 years it accelerated, and then even again this year I took it upon myself to do a thought process of, if I were to solely use AI, could it be done? And the answer is it couldn't replace anything yet, but what it can do is surprisingly advanced.
Ryan, we've got 10 quick fire questions for you here, okay?
Love it. Let's go.
Let's start with, do you prefer to play hockey or golf?
Oh, hockey.
Hockey.
That's a tough one. That might be the toughest question you asked me.
We should have finished with that one. Yeah.
It's close, but it's hockey.
So it's hockey. Is that a reference on your golf swing or golf ability, or just...
You know what? I'm all right at this game. I won't say I'm an expert, but I've got a pretty good golf game.
Who do you call when something goes wrong?
Dad. Leave it to the engineer to be the problem solver. Now, I will say this is the other part, knowing an engineer, right? Of sometimes it may be a longer answer than necessary, but I promise you it will be a thorough and well thought out answer.
Agreed. Work from home or work from the office?
Office.
Yeah, thought that would be the case. Detroit pizza or Chicago pizza?
Oh, Detroit pizza. Give me that golden cheese crust burnt into the pan with the history of the automotive industry baked in.
And Tenneco's values.
Yeah, that's right. You can't beat a good Detroit pizza.
What would someone who's not from Detroit or not from Chicago say?
Ooh, Well, they're incredibly different, right? I think
Italian.
yeah, anything else, someone outside of this city will say they didn't know what a Detroit pizza was.
Working independently or working as part of a team?
Part of a team every day. The ideas you'll get, especially from a connected, collaborative team who's not afraid to challenge each other. You can disagree. Disagree is part of our expectation, but the work product ends up being so much better with a group.
Do you prefer to call or text?
I'm old school, actually, depending on the scenario, I think I'd prefer a call unless it's something a quick text solves. I like to talk to people.
Best advice you've ever been given?
Stay true to yourself and don't try to be someone you're not. Really, it doesn't get any more simplistic than that.
Who told you that?
That's from my dad and his parents, and by extension, my mom's parents. I'm very, very fortunate for a lot of the mentors, my mom included as well, but they just wanted me to find what my strengths were and find a way to accentuate them, and my job helps me do that in others. So that's the core.
Sports car or SUV?
It's tough now with the family and young kids. The practical dad in me wants to say a nice SUV for family activities, but the American muscle automotive enthusiast wants to say sports car, so I'll cheat. I'll say sports car for me because my dad's recently retired and bought a beautiful classic vintage 1965 Corvette. So I'll live that dream out through him right now.
Like it. When did you last cry?
You could ask my wife this. I'm not much of a crier. I will say this though, and being a dad has changed me. So my oldest is my daughter. Changed my perspective on my life. Stereotypically, she has her dad wrapped around her finger. But we were at a good friend's wedding, and I'm close with the father of the bride, and he just broke down crying, and wasn't even a direct family member of mine, but watching him break down crying, seeing his little girl get married, that was the last time I cried because I know what that's going to be like for me.
You going? And finally, who would play you in a film?
Well, I think the obvious answers are Brad Pitt, Ryan Gosling.
I've literally put down his answers will be Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, Ryan Gosling.
You know what's funny is actually in the office today with the suit coat on and my hair's a little bit longer with the beard, I was told I look like one of the actors from Sweet Home Alabama. I can't remember which character, but we'll take him. And Brad Pitt famously has worn the Champion brand shirt in several films and in pop culture, and Champion's one of our historic Tenneco-owned brands. So there's mainstream appeal to Champion spark plugs.
That's your link to Brad.
That's right.
I like that. I was going to say, he probably is. Who's the most famous person to wear a Champion branded?
Brad Pitt.
Probably Brad Pitt, yeah.
And 2 movies now. In Fight Club, there's Champion gear. And most recently, I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he's in a Champion shirt for the majority of that movie.
That must be pretty cool.
There's a lot of Americana and pride, especially here in the US, around that brand. And Europe has a huge presence and importance in the Champion brand, a lot of the engineering, a lot of the technology. So I don't want to make it an American-centric thing, but yeah, Champion's a historic brand. People know what it is.
So Ryan, as we head back to the office on this crazy Detroit motorway, we always end every episode with the same question. Who would you like to see next in the Fields and Rudd passenger seat?
You know what? I think I like, with you boys being stateside a little bit, you've got to get some more executives on this side of the pond, diversify your portfolio a little bit. So I'll tee it up for anyone in the family of automotive executives on this side of the pond for you guys.
Love that.
Fantastic.